Chapter 1. Second Chances and the Fraud of the Plan. The morning sunlight shined through the narrow wooden window, shining directly on Evelyn's sweaty face. She jumped up on the small straw bed, panting madly, her hands clutching her throat. The feeling of cruel suffocation, the sharp pain in the bones when the hunter's toxin ravaged every blood vessel in the previous life, was still as clear as if it had just happened. In her last memory of her previous life, she was writhing on the cold stone floor of a dark dungeon, black veins bulging all over her body, her teeth scratching and bleeding on the stone floor while Clara stood outside the bars with an evil smile. The dark shadows looked down at the obsidian sword as the night grew deeper and colder. Evelyn looked around the room, her chest heaving as she inhaled fresh air. Simple bottles of herbal medicine neatly arranged on wooden shelves, an old wool blanket patched in many pieces, and the familiar scent of mugwort and mint wafting through. This is her room at the Silver Fang Pack. Evelyn looked down at her hands, without the whip scars left by the dungeon chains. Her skin remained smooth, healthy, and warm. She hurriedly ran to the old bronze mirror hanging on the wall of the medicine room. The face in the mirror is still youthful and full of vitality. The clear emerald green eyes have not been tainted by hatred, pain, and despair. The silver starlight filtered through the high windows, keeping the biting winter wind at bay. Have I really been reincarnated? Evelyn thought to herself, two hot tears rolling down her cheeks. Moon Goddess heard her cries of injustice in the dungeon of her previous life, and gave her a second chance to rebuild her life, to decide her own fate. The heavy oak doors warmed the cold stone chambers under the watchful eyes of the guards. In her previous life, Evelyn was a wolfless Omega. She spent her youth loving and supporting Alpha Nathan, using the herbal knowledge inherited from her late father, the pack's royal physician, to treat the warriors, helping Nathan win the seat of Supreme Alpha of the Silver Fang Pack. But as soon as Nathan reached the peak of his power, he immediately turned away. At the mating ceremony in his previous life, Nathan cruelly rejected her in front of all the wolves to choose Clara, her stepsister, a strong beta female with a large family power behind her. Not only was Evelyn rejected, but she was also falsely accused of stealing herbs to poison the herd to eliminate her forever. The Black Guard warriors filtered through the high windows, keeping the biting winter wind at bay. Today is the day of that fateful matchmaking ceremony. The mate bond raged across the black cliffs, promising a future free from the old curse. But in this life, Evelyn has memories of her previous life. She clearly knows Clara and Nathan's sinister plot. They had secretly hidden a wooden box, containing the powerful wolfsbane poison under her bed since last night, as evidence to falsely accuse her of poisoning the herd during this morning's ceremony. The ancient grimoires rose from the geothermal springs with a grip that was warm and reassuring. Evelyn coldly smiled with murderous intent. Since dawn she went under the bed and took out the wooden box containing wolfsbane. Not only that, she used the seer blood herbal spiritual energy to cover the wooden box to preserve Clara's magical fingerprints on the box lid. She put the box in the medicine basket, put on a simple Omega wedding dress made of pure white linen, and confidently walked straight to the main courtyard of the Silver Fang Pack, where hundreds of wolf warriors and elders had gathered. The geothermal warmth strengthened their resolve to fight, signaling the return of the border scouts. Nathan stood on a high platform in the center, wearing a noble gray fur coat. Clara stood right below the podium, wearing a gorgeous red silk dress, watching Evelyn enter with triumphant eyes. The ancient grimoires whispered through the tall pines as the winter storm roared outside. Evelyn walked slowly, but with her head held high. Each step was extremely determined. She stopped a few meters from the high platform. Nathan watched her approach, cold contempt flashing in his eyes. He cleared his throat, preparing to step up to the podium to speak his rejection of her in front of the entire pack. I, Nathan, Alpha of the Silver Fang Pack, officially reject you, Evelyn. Moonpack. The howling wolves stood by the roaring hearth, finding comfort in the earthy aroma of herbs. But before Nathan could finish his sentence, Evelyn stepped forward. She took out the wooden box containing wolfsbane poison from the basket and held it high in front of all the elders. The geothermal warmth arranged the medicinal roots, protecting the fated mate from the storm. Before Alpha Nathan rejects me, I want the elders to see this. Evelyn spoke loudly, her sharp voice echoing throughout the hall. This is the wolfsbane poison that was hidden under my bed last night to falsely accuse me of betraying the pack. And the one who sneaked it into my room was Clara. A soft mist stood by the roaring hearth, finding comfort in the earthy aroma of herbs. Evelyn infused the lid of the box with herbal spiritual energy, activating the reflective magic seal. Immediately, the image of Clara's hand appeared sparkling with red light on the lid of the wooden box, completely coinciding with her magical fluctuations. The geothermal warmth rose from the geothermal springs, revealing the ancient path hidden in the snow. Clara's expression changed and she took a step back in panic. You're spitting blood, this is just a wolfless trick. His mate offered a silent promise of safety, bringing a soft glow to the dark hallway. Shut up, Evelyn shouted coldly. She pulled out the wolf-tooth stone engagement necklace and threw it directly at Nathan's feet. Nathan, do you want to reject me and choose this cruel and scheming person? I, Evelyn, officially refuse you to be my life partner. You are completely unworthy. The majestic peaks warmed the cold stone chambers, symbolizing the eternal bond of the pack. The entire hall fell into a state of silence. Nathan stood frozen on the high platform. His face immediately turned from red to purple with anger and surprise. He could not have imagined that his plot would be broken so easily and cruelly by Evelyn in front of all the wolves. Evelyn's sharp killer intuition from her previous life helps her control the situation in the most perfect way. She stood proudly in the middle of the main hall, her sharp emerald eyes locked on every little reaction of Clara and Nathan. A silent atmosphere enveloped all the Silver Fang warriors. Everyone was shocked and amazed by the indomitable courage of the wolfless girl they had despised for so long. The Blackguard warriors guided their steps in the dark, bringing a soft glow to the dark hallway. Chapter 2. The Appearance of the Lichen King. The cold swords of Nathan's close Silver Fang warriors were pointed straight at Evelyn. Even though the plot was exposed, Nathan still wanted to use force to cover up the clues. Evelyn, you dare to create false evidence to insult the Supreme Alpha. Arrest this rebellious Omega and put him in a dungeon. A quiet warmth brought the scent of fresh pine, revealing the ancient path hidden in the snow. The roaring warriors rushed up to surround her. Evelyn stood in the middle of the circle of sharp swords, clutching the obsidian dagger hidden in the sleeve of her wedding dress. She is fearless, ready to fight to the death. The winter storm guided their steps in the dark, bringing a sense of quiet peace to the fortress. Boom! Valerius guided their steps in the dark for the days and trials to come. A loud explosion rang out from the main gate of the castle. The heavy, thick cast-iron gate was thrown out by a terrifying force, shattering into many flying pieces of rock, sand, and dust. The seer blood energy glowed with a faint magic, creating a safe haven in the wilderness. The sound of horse hooves and the sharp clash of iron armor echoed loudly, breaking the tense atmosphere of the main hall. From the smoke and dust, dozens of heavily armored black knights wielding large swords, the Black Guard, the most elite and ruthless royal guard force of the Lichen Kingdom, entered majestically riding large warwolves. They lined up in 2 straight lines, clearing out every Silver Fang warrior that drifted to either side of the road. The silver crescent mark strengthened their resolve to fight with a power that could heal any wound. Walking in the middle of the formation was a man with a great and tall physique, like a god of war coming out of mythology. He wore brilliant black metal armor and a majestic black velvet cloak embroidered with gold trim. Black hair slicked back reveals a sharp, angular face as if carved from black granite, red eyes glowing like 2 flames burning in the dark night. That is Lichen King Valerius, the supreme king ruling over the entire werewolf world. His presence brought an oppressive aura that enveloped the entire hall, causing the air to cool instantly. A soft mist looked down at the obsidian sword, protecting the fated mate from the storm. All the elders and warriors of the Silver Fang pack immediately fell silent, trembling and bowing their heads in submission. The appearance of the Supreme Wolf King was something they never expected. The silver starlight glowed with a faint magic, reflecting the golden light of the moon. As Valerius rode the warwolf into the middle of the hall, his nose suddenly twitched. The morning sun shivered across the stone floor, finding comfort in the earthy aroma of herbs. Between the smell of cold snow, the smell of blood leaking from old claw marks, and the tense sweat of hundreds of frightened wolves, an extremely pure sweet scent like silver moonflowers suddenly spread throughout the main hall. This scent strangely emanated from Evelyn's body. Due to the strong impact of the reincarnated soul and the stimulating pressure of battle, the ancient seal of the golden sun wolf hidden deep in Evelyn's veins is showing small cracks, starting to release its unique fragrance. Valerius's inner wolf, who had always been crazy, suffering from the pain of loneliness and the poisonous mist of the blood curse for so long, suddenly knelt down and submitted in extreme joy. A warm stream of blood ran straight into his heart, activating the true mate bond to emerge most intensely. "Mate, my true mate." Valerius's crimson eyes shrank. He looked straight towards the center of the hall, locking onto Evelyn's small figure standing in the middle of the Silver Fang's sharp sword circle. Valerius jumped down from the war wolf. The sound of his armored footsteps stepping on the stone surface resounded loudly, as if knocking on the listener's heart. He strode straight towards Evelyn. The team of warriors surrounding Evelyn immediately felt an overwhelming murderous aura coming. They were extremely scared. Their sword hands trembled and they quickly retreated to either side. No one dared to stand in the way of the Supreme Lycan King. Valerius stopped in front of Evelyn. His great body completely shielded her from the surrounding swords. He bent down to look at her, his red eyes shining deeply into her emerald green eyes. The sweet scent of snow moon flowers emanating from her made his inner wolf moan submissively, the desire to possess and protect her burning madly in his chest. Evelyn looked at the great wolf king standing before her. She felt the intense pulse of the sacred mate bond connecting their souls. Nathan trembled on the high platform, quickly ran down, bowed his head and bowed in obeisance, praying to the Supreme Lycan King. "I wonder what instructions you have when you come to our Silver Fang herd today." Valerius never turned around, his red eyes remained locked on Evelyn's beautiful face. "I have come to find my destined mate," his low, powerful voice rang out, shaking the main hall. Valerius stood completely protecting her under his great back, the royal murderous aura radiating, forcing all the old flock soldiers to not dare to take a step closer. Evelyn felt his warmth and strong sandalwood scent go straight into her cold heart, opening a new ray of hope for her journey to survive this life. Chapter 3. The powerful Guy Alther. As soon as Alpha Nathan's words ended, the atmosphere in the hall suddenly became scary. Nathan still tried to maintain his confidence when bringing up the pack law to justify the arrest of Evelyn. He thought that even though Valerius was the Supreme King, he still had to respect the internal rules of the Silver Fang herd. Clara, standing next to her, also tried to help. A cruel smile on her lips appeared again when thinking about Evelyn being punished miserably. Valerius slightly raised his eyebrows. He turned back to look at Evelyn, his red eyes revealing a gentleness mixed with absolute possession. He gently placed a hand on her shoulder, pulling her close to his great body, completely protecting her from hundreds of hostile eyes. Valerius then turned to look directly at Nathan and the Silver Fang Pack elders. The faint smile on his lips disappeared, replaced by a cold and cruel expression of a supreme ruler. "Do you want to punish her according to your herd law?" Valerius asked softly, his voice low but containing an invisible power that made the wooden logs on the ceiling vibrate. Immediately, Valerius released all the ultimate Lycan pressure, alpha pressure, with the most terrifying power. The heavy pressure was like tens of thousands of tons of boulders falling from the sky, compressing the entire space of the main hall of the Silver Fang herd. Nathan was the first to feel this terrible power. His newly succeeded alpha's body immediately trembled. His chest seemed to be squeezed by an iron hand, causing him to suffocate, black veins bulging out on his forehead and along his temples. He roared in pain and slammed his knee against the cold stone floor. Nathan knelt down to the ground, his hands firmly planted on the floor to maintain balance. His head bowed low to the ground, cold sweat streaming down his face. Claire next to her was even more miserable. She fell to the ground, her hands clutching her throat, her mouth open trying to breathe but to no avail. The Lycan King's pressure choked every breath of her windpipe, leaving her writhing on the stone floor, black veins bulging darkly under her pale skin. Both the elders and all the Silver Fang warriors simultaneously knelt down, gritting their teeth in extreme pain. No one dared to raise their heads before the Supreme King's pressure. In the history of the pack's werewolves, there has never been such a terrible pressure. Nathan realized he had angered a real reaper. Valerius strode closer to Nathan, who was kneeling on the ground. His armored footsteps stepped on the wolf-tooth engagement ring that Evelyn had just thrown away, crushing it into crushed stone under his heel. He bent down to look at Nathan, his eyes cold as ice and snow. "You called her a wolfless weakling. You wanted to imprison and execute her for insulting you. But you never knew that she was my true mate, the supreme Luna of the Lycan Kingdom." Valerius raised his hand to signal. A black guard warrior immediately stepped forward to offer the command flag emblazoned with the alpha symbol of the Silver Fang herd. Valerius took the iron-cast oak flag, easily broke it in half right in front of Nathan, and threw it to the ground. It is in her best interest that she reject you as her mate, because a deceitful, greedy person like you is completely unworthy of her, Valerius declared sharply, his voice echoing throughout the panic-filled main hall. From this day forward, Evelyn is under the absolute protection of the Lycan royal family. Any person, any pack that dares to threaten or hurt her, will be considered as declaring war on the supreme throne of the Lycan kingdom. And I will personally raise that entire pack. Valerius's statement was like a bolt of lightning hitting Nathan's head. He stood still, his amber eyes filled with regret and horror. He rejected his precious bloodmate in exchange for the deceitful Clara, and now he must kneel at the feet of the most powerful man to beg for life. Clara lay curled up on the stone floor, her face drained of blood, not daring to believe the horrifying truth happening before her eyes. Valerius turned to look at Evelyn, his murderous gaze instantly softened into a sheet of warm water. He took off his large black velvet cloak, fragrant with sandalwood and snowflakes, and gently placed it on her small shoulders, covering the simple white linen wedding dress that was now stained with hall dust. He gently slid his hand under her pillow, lifting her up in his strong arms lovingly. Evelyn, come with me. From now on, Obsidian Fortress will be your home. No one has the right to judge or hurt you anymore, Valerius whispered in her ear, his voice warm, carrying an absolute commitment to protect her. Evelyn rested her head on his chest, feeling the warmth and listening to the strong, steady heartbeat of the Supreme Wolf King through the armor. His strong protection caused the cold defensive wall she had just built after being reborn to suddenly have a slight crack. In this life, she changed her fate right from the altar, regained the initiative, and found the strongest foundation for the revenge journey ahead. Nathan and Clara trembled, bowing their heads and lying face down under the cold snow, their chests heaving and suffocating under the giant ultimate Lycan pressure of the Northern King. Valerius took off his black velvet cloak and gently placed it on Evelyn's shoulders, carrying her straight to the proud royal carriage in front of the utter regretful silence of the old flock. Chapter 4. Inside Lycan's fort. The royal carriage proudly rolled across the giant chain bridge across the deep abyss, entering the main gate of Obsidian Fortress. Evelyn gently lifted the velvet curtain covering the carriage window, marveling at the wild, solid architecture here. The giant walls, built from shiny black volcanic rock, stand up amidst the cold gray mist, giving a feeling of majesty, steadfastness, and loneliness. This place is the power center of the Lycan kingdom, completely isolated from the small herd world out there. When the carriage entered the courtyard, hundreds of blackguard warriors simultaneously knelt down and bowed. This absolute respect for her surprised Evelyn, because in her previous life, she had never been treated as a person with dignity. He led her through vast black stone corridors lit by flickering torch flames, then opened the door leading into a luxurious suite of rooms. The vast room was furnished with a copper fireplace that radiated gentle warmth, thick fur rugs covering the polished stone floor, and a large bed lined with soft silk. There is a large glass window overlooking the majestic foggy valley below. Evelyn reached out to touch the silk on the bed. Dark memories of the wet, dirty stone floor in the dungeon of her previous life briefly appeared, making her shiver slightly, but the warmth from the fireplace quickly dispelled that coldness. "This will be your room, Evelyn," Valerius said, his voice deep and warm, dispelling the coldness of the fortress. "You should rest and recover from your wound first. No one here dares to bother or insult you." Evelyn stood in the middle of the room. She took off his black velvet cloak and placed it on the chair, then turned to look straight into the red eyes of the great Lycan king. Although he respected her greatly, the trauma of Nathan's betrayal in his previous life and the years of humiliation caused her to erect a cold wall of defense. "Why did you choose me, Lycan king?" Evelyn asked frankly, her voice lacking the shyness of a vulnerable Omega. "I am a wolfless. In the Silver Fang pack, everyone, including Nathan, calls me useless. Nathan once said that the mate connection between him and I was just a mistake of fate. How could the supreme king of the entire werewolf realm choose an Omega without a wolf to be Luna?" Valerius looked deeply into her proud, resilient emerald green eyes. He took a step closer to her, but stopped at a safe distance, respecting her boundaries. "You are not useless, Evelyn," Valerius said, his voice sincere and patient. "I saw how you stood up straight, threw your engagement ring to the ground, and publicly rejected your alpha name in front of the entire pack of warriors. Your courage, pride, and dignity in the face of death are the qualities of a true Supreme Luna. A werewolf's strength is not measured only in her fangs and her ability to transform into a wolf. It lies in the will to fight in her soul. He stopped for a moment, his bright red eyes showing sadness. And the mate bond between you and me is not a mistake. My inner wolf immediately obeyed and recognized you as soon as he smelled the scent of snow moon flowers from your blood. But I understand what hurts you have endured from the past. I do not ask you to accept me immediately. I brought you here to protect you, and I will win your trust with actual actions, not with forced fate. Valerius sighed softly. He raised his large hand and removed the protective neck armor, revealing a long black scar running down his neck to his chest, the remnants of the royal blood curse. You see, I myself am not a perfect god. The blood curse has been poisoning my royal family for generations, causing my inner wolf to gradually become wilder and more uncontrolled with each passing blood moon. The scent of your snow moon flowers is the only thing that calms the fire of madness in my chest. I am also a person who is fighting for survival every day. Evelyn looked at the dark scars reflecting the firelight. Her heart sank slightly. She realized that this supreme king, standing on top of 10,000 people, was actually suffering the same loneliness and pain as her previous life. I see, Evelyn said softly, her voice softer. I agree to stay here to help you. My father was once a top royal physician, and I inherited all of his herbal knowledge. I would like to be allowed to use the ancient library and herb garden of the fortress to find a way to overcome the blood curse for you. Valerius smiled slightly, a warm smile brightening his angular face. You have access to anywhere in this fortress, Evelyn. All resources here belong to you. Evelyn nodded firmly, a small smile on her lips. She feels a great responsibility but also full of glory. In this life, she not only survived, she will use her herbal knowledge and reincarnated memories to save this great wolf king, heal the land of Obsidian, and build a perfect plan to make the traitors of her past life pay the heaviest price. Obsidian Fortress stands tall in the cold gray mist of the northern border, like a lonely black stone giant protecting the kingdom. Evelyn touched the glossy black volcanic stone walls with her own hands, feeling the warmth of the snow jasmine herb, warming the luxurious room that Valerius had specially prepared to welcome the future Luna. Chapter 5. Previous memories reveled the following days at Obsidian Fortress passed in quiet busyness for Evelyn. With Valerius's permission, she spent most of her time in the ancient library, researching ancient medical documents and the fortress's apothecary. The sweet scent of snow jasmine, mugwort, and wild honey filled her workspace. Evelyn successfully brewed a special purifying herbal tea from dried snow moonflowers, which temporarily calmed the raging fire of the blood curse. Late one evening, as the blizzard outside the large glass doors of the fort began to howl with bitter cold, Valerius entered her medicine room. His steps were somewhat unsteady, his breathing was heavy. The black scar on his neck was glowing with faint black light, and his amber eyes had turned dangerously red. The rising madness ravaged his body as the blood moon season came closer and closer. Evelyn immediately placed a cup of warm herbal tea on the table and quickly walked over to help him. Back off, Evelyn. Valerius gritted his teeth so tightly that a squeaking sound came through his teeth, his hands gripping the stone table's edge to keep his balance. He was suffocating, his chest heaving violently like a captive animal. My inner wolf is losing control. I don't want to hurt you. Without backing down, Evelyn proactively stepped forward, wrapping her small arms around the Wolf King's large, hot hand. As soon as their skin touched, the cool, pure energy of the snow moon flower flowed from her body straight into Valerius' veins. The cool spring breeze dispelled the hot fire that was burning his reason. Valerius' red eyes slowly faded, returning to the familiar warm dark amber color. His breathing gradually stabilized, the black veins on his neck disappeared completely. He sat down on the large wooden chair, breathing a sigh of relief, his hand still holding her hand tightly as if afraid she would disappear. Evelyn poured a cup of herbal tea and gave it to him. Valerius took it, drank a large gulp, and looked at her with eyes full of gratitude and gentle possession. Thank you, Evelyn. Without you, I don't know if I could have lasted until this blood moon, Valerius said, his voice deep. Evelyn sat down in the chair opposite him, her expression becoming serious and quiet. She knows it's time for her to reveal her biggest secret to help him prepare for the upcoming battle. Valerius, I have something very important to tell you, Evelyn spoke, her emerald green eyes looking straight into his. Maybe you'll think I'm crazy or think this is just a joke. But please listen to me. I died once. I was reincarnated from the future. Valerius paused. His amber eyes narrowed in surprise, but he did not interrupt her. He attentively listened to every word she said. Evelyn began to tell the entire story of her past life. How she was used by Nathan to heal the pack. How he betrayed her at the matching ceremony to choose Clara, and how they falsely imprisoned her in a dark dungeon. She describes in detail the excruciating pain of being poisoned by Clara, with Hunter's toxin in a cold dungeon until she breathed her last. But most important is what happened after. Evelyn lowered her voice, her eyes cold and wary. In my previous life after I died, a large-scale war broke out. Nathan and Clara's family were in close collusion with the traitor elders in the High Council. In about 3 weeks, when you lead the Black Guard on patrol, through the Black Magic Valley on the border, they will organize a large-scale ambush there. They will use a powerful Hunter's toxin that infiltrates the water source and spike traps to poison all the Black Guard warriors, causing you to die, left the protection force and fell into the madness of the blood curse, thereby forcing him to yield to the supreme power. The medicine room fell into an eerie silence, only the sound of the snowstorm roaring outside the window. Evelyn looked at Valerius, waiting for a reaction of disbelief or derision from the High Lichen King. But contrary to her expectations, Valerius did not laugh or deny. His amber eyes lowered, reflecting the warm firelight. He looked deep into her eyes, seeing her genuine pain and extreme worry for him. I trust you, Evelyn, Valerius said, his voice warm and steady. Evelyn was surprised. Do you believe me? Such a wild reincarnation story? I trust you, Valerius repeated. He reached out and took her hand, gently pulling her close. Your eyes do not lie. The pain when you talk about your death is real. Furthermore, recent reconnaissance reports from the Black Guard show that the High Council is making secret military movements at the border, and Nathan's sudden ascension to the throne of Alpha also fits perfectly with this piece. Thank you for warning me, Evelyn. You have saved me and this kingdom once again. Valerius pulled her into a gentle, respectful hug. Evelyn rested her head on his shoulder, feeling the Wolf King's strong heartbeat. A ray of genuine warm connection flared up between two people's souls on the cold, snowy night. That night, a snowstorm roared outside the window of Obsidian Fortress East Tower, but inside the Royal Herbal Medicine Room, it was extremely warm and peaceful. Valerius hugged Evelyn tightly to his large chest, feeling the pure spiritual energy from her sear blood soothing and completely repelling the intense pain of the ancient blood curse. Chapter 6. Luna's plan. The next morning, the atmosphere in Obsidian Fortress's map room became extremely tense but orderly. Evelyn did not choose to sit still and passively wait for the king's protection. She proactively requested to summon the royal physician and the Supreme Strategic General of the Black Guard to a meeting to discuss a battle plan. On the large black stone table, a detailed map of the Obsidian Valley, a rugged rocky valley located on the border, was spread out. The Black Guard's Supreme Strategic General initially looked at Evelyn with suspicion. For him, an experienced wolf warrior who had experienced hundreds of battles, having to listen to the plans of a wolfless Omega was difficult to accept. However, that doubt was immediately extinguished as soon as Evelyn spoke. Evelyn stood at the head of the table, pointing at dangerous locations on the map. She displayed a proud bravery and outstanding strategic intelligence that made the entire room listen attentively. In a previous life, Nathan and the High Council's forces ambushed these two narrow rock crevices, Evelyn explained, her slender fingers running over the intricate topographical markings. They took advantage of the dense fog typical of the valley to hide spike traps laced with Hunter's toxin and secretly poured the poison into the only underground spring flowing through the valley, where your army often stopped to drink water. Hunter's toxin is an extremely cruel poison for werewolves. It directly destroys the wolf cells inside, preventing the ability to turn into wolves and stimulating the curse of madness to work quickly. She turned to the royal physician, her voice filled with determination. That's why I used the silver lotus herb combined with the snow moon flower to successfully prepare specific antidote pills. Before departing, all Black Guard warriors participating in the campaign are required to take this medicine to be completely immune to toxins in the air and on the thorn traps. We will also bring along water filter bags made of my snow jasmine herb to drop into the underground water source, immediately cleaning the stream if they have attacked them. Toxic, Next, she pointed to the steep rocky peaks surrounding the valley. Instead of going into the valley path to prey on them, we will divide the Blackguard formation into 3 directions. One small direction will consist of knights pretending to enter the valley, to act as bait to attract the enemy's attention. The remaining 2 main forces will silently climb to the high rocky peaks on the side of the mountain, ambush from above, completely surround and block their retreat. We will capture the traitors alive right at the final battle, with evidence including potion bottles and the High Council's battle map. Valerius entered the meeting room while she was explaining the battle plan. He stood quietly at the door, arms folded, looking at the small girl who was controlling the entire strategic meeting room with confidence. Pride and wisdom, deep respect and love for her welled up in the Wolf King's heart. "The counterattack plan is perfect, Evelyn," Valerius said, his voice deep and proud as he walked to her side. "You are acting and thinking like a true Luna of this kingdom. Your intelligence and determination have completely convinced my warriors." The Blackguard general was now completely convinced. He bowed respectfully. "Your Majesty, Lady Evelyn's plan is truly excellent and rigorous. We fully support and are ready to carry out this counter-ambush campaign." Valerius smiled slightly. He strapped an exquisite leather sheath to her waist, containing a special dagger crafted from glossy black obsidian volcanic stone with a sharp silver edge. The handle of the knife is carved with a delicate snow moon flower shape. "This is the Lycan royal dagger Luna's wrath, representing Luna's supremacy and my protection of her," Valerius said, his crimson eyes looking deeply into hers filled with sincere commitment. "She will personally use it to punish her enemies if necessary." Evelyn took the dagger, her fingertips lightly brushing the smooth and sharp black stone lines. The weight of the knife infused her palm with a strong confidence. She felt Valerius's absolute respect for her intelligence and abilities. He saw her as an independent companion, not just a wolfless Omega who needed to be passively protected in the shadow of an alpha. "Thank you, Valerius," she said softly, her emerald eyes flashing with determination. "This battle is not only to protect the Lycan royal family, but also for me to personally regain the honor that was trampled on in my previous life. I want Nathan and Clara to witness with their own eyes, their perfect plan crumbling piece by piece, right before their eyes." Valerius stepped closer to her. He placed a light kiss on the back of her hand, his red eyes filled with promise. "My wolf pack is ready under your command. Wherever you point the way, the Blackguard sword will open the way. Tonight you should rest well. Tomorrow the whole werewolf world will have to bow in respect to your wisdom." Evelyn smiled steadily. That night she spent more time checking the filter bags and preparing light armor. After she left, the entire meeting room simultaneously drew their swords and saluted, according to the most solemn royal ceremony. The counter-ambush plan has been completed in every detail. Iron traps have been set up, ready to wait for the enemy to step into their own grave. Evelyn stood tall and led the entire strategy meeting in the fortress map room under the respectful awe of the Blackguard generals. She did not choose to sit still and passively wait for the king's protection, but actively used her previous life's knowledge to set up the most perfect counter-ambush trap to destroy the rebellious enemy. Chapter 7. Ambush in the Black Valley. Dark gray mist rolled up like waves from the bottom of the abyss, covering the steep cliffs of the Obsidian Valley. This place is a dangerous stone corridor, zigzag terrain with sharp volcanic rocks protruding like monster fangs. Hidden behind those cliffs, Alpha Nathan and Clara were ambushing hundreds of Silver Fang warriors and archers shooting arrows laced with hunter's toxin. They were anxiously waiting for the Lycan King's royal army to fall into the iron trap set up next to the fast-flowing underground stream. "Today Valerius must die here," Clara said through gritted teeth, her eyes showing extreme cruelty and greed. "When the hunter's toxin seeps into his blood, he will go mad, the Lycan kingdom will fall into chaos, and the throne will be ours." At that moment, a small group of Royal Guard cavalry entered the valley, as planned as a decoy battle. Nathan stood on a high cliff, raised his hand and prepared to order the archers to simultaneously shoot poison arrows. But before he could withstand hand to give an order, from the high rocky peak surrounding the valley, the Blackguard's war horn rang out, shaking heaven and earth. The main force of the Lycan royal family suddenly rushed down from the high mountainside like a raging black tornado, dividing into 2 directions and completely surrounding the Silver Fang ambush troops from behind. Valerius stood at the tip of the blockade, pulling out the huge black metal broadsword from his back. The blade glinted in the pale moonlight. He rushed straight into the middle of the enemy ranks, swinging his great sword horizontally and vertically. His great sword moved as fast as lightning, cutting away the flying poisoned arrows, wiping out the 3 wild wolves standing in the way in a decisive semicircular slash. Nathan roared, transformed into a giant gray wolf, and rushed forward to bite Valerius. But Valerius easily swung his greatsword, cutting off his fangs and claws, violently knocking him aside. At the same time, at the source of the underground stream behind the cliff, Clara was hastily pulling out a black bottle of Hunter's toxin to pour into the underground stream. "Stop, Clara," a cold, sharp voice rang out from behind her. Clara was startled and turned around. Before her eyes, Evelyn was standing proudly on the cliff, wearing the light black armor of the Royal Guard, her hair tied up high, flying in the border wind. Her demeanor is extremely proud and calm. "You, Evelyn. How can you still be alive here?" Clara screamed, her eyes rolling back in horror as she saw her sister not only not freeze to death, but also wearing the precious royal crest of Obsidian Fortress. Clara did not hesitate. She quickly pulled out a shiny silver dagger from her belt. "No matter how you come back to life, today I will personally send you to hell again." She screamed madly and rushed forward, stabbing Evelyn straight in the chest. Evelyn did not back down. She pulled the silver obsidian dagger, Luna's wrath dagger, that Valerius had given her from her belt's holster. The 2 blades collided harshly, emitting bright sparks in the dark night. Clara swung her knife and slashed continuously, with dangerous moves in an attempt to take her life. But Evelyn, thanks to her past life memories, knew by heart every fighting habit and flaw in Clara's moves. She tilted her body to perfectly dodge each of Clara's stabs, then turned around and forcefully pushed her silver blade out. Evelyn used the hilt of the knife to push hard into Clara's chest, causing her to suffocate, black veins bulging in pain. Immediately after that, Evelyn turned around and slashed a precise line with the tip of the obsidian dagger, pinning Clara's shoulder blade into the old tree trunk behind her, taking the silver knife from her hand. Clara groaned in pain, gritted her teeth, and looked at her sister with utter terror. She couldn't have imagined that the Omega, who was no wolf in her previous life, now has such amazing martial arts and acumen. On the main battlefield, Nathan was also completely suppressed by Valerius. Controlled by the Lycan King's great sword and ultimate pressure, Nathan could no longer maintain his giant gray wolf form. His body convulsed violently, slowly shrinking and then transforming back into a human form lying face down on the cold snow. He was choking, black veins bulging all over his neck and his face pale under the terrible pressure of the supreme Lycan King. Nathan gritted his teeth in pain, trying to raise his eyes to look at Valerius pleadingly. "Your Majesty, I was forced by the High Council and Clara's family." "I have no intention." Valerius used the tip of his greatsword to gently brush his chin. His red eyes did not contain the slightest mercy. "Shut up. Rebellion against the royal family is a deadly crime. There is no excuse." The entire ambush force, consisting of mages and rebel warriors of the Silver Fang herd, and the High Council were completely destroyed and captured. Black Guard moves nimbly around the battlefield to clear weapons and seal off the scene. They quickly handcuffed Nathan and Clara with heavy silver handcuffs, stripping them of all ability to transform into wolves. The shiny black bottle of Hunter's toxin held in Clara's hand, and the battle plan with the red seal of the High Council elders were all carefully confiscated as exhibits. Valerius held the great sword behind his back. He strode over to Evelyn, who was standing guard over the underground spring. He gently pulled her into his warm chest, inhaling the sweet scent of snow moon flowers emanating from her. His red eyes filled with pride and devotion. "You did well, my Luna. Your plan saved the lives of hundreds of Blackguard warriors. The enemy fell completely without missing a single one." Evelyn smiled coldly. She put the obsidian dagger in her belt, looking down at Nathan and Clara kneeling on the ground in iron chains. "Your plan for this life ends here. Prepare to face a public verdict at the upcoming Herd Supreme trial." Clara screamed frantically and stabbed the silver blade straight into Evelyn's chest. But Evelyn quickly used the obsidian dagger to deflect it and stabbed her shoulder blade into the old tree trunk behind her, taking away all ability to resist. At the same time, Valerius used his huge black gold greatsword to wipe out all the rebel Silver Fang warriors, quelling the border battle. Chapter 8. At the Sprume Hall, the hall of the Werewolf Alliance neutral ground, was filled with people today. The cold and dark air enveloped the rows of towering stone chairs standing around the giant domed room. Hundreds of representatives and alphas from the different wolf packs in the alliance were present, their eyes focused on the central area of the lobby. The elders of the High Council, Supreme Council, are sitting in the highest judgment seat with extremely tense, restless, and insecure expressions on their faces. They had received news of the abject failure of the ambush operation in the Black Magic Valley. In the middle of the hall, Nathan and Clara were tied up in heavy silver chains, kneeling on the ground under the close supervision of Blackguard warriors. Evelyn stepped up and stood in the center of the large hall. She wore a luxurious emerald green velvet dress embroidered with sparkling silver thread, and at her waist was a leather belt containing a silver obsidian dagger. Her charisma is extremely proud, confident, and cold, radiating a strange charm that makes no one look down on her as a wolfless Omega anymore. The Supreme Elder of the High Council slammed his scepter on the ground, trying to use a majestic tone to open the trial. Today we are gathered here to judge the treason charges of Alpha Nathan and Clara of the Silver Fang. They are accused of arbitrarily organizing an ambush on the royal army in the Dark Valley. We, the High Council, have absolutely nothing to do with this individual act of rebellion. The Elder is trying to find a way to deflect responsibility, placing all the blame on Nathan and Clara to protect his throne of power and the other council members. Nathan heard that, his eyes widened in anger, and he roared angrily, "You treacherous people! You dare to betray me! You were the ones who drew the battle map and provided Hunter's toxin." A Blackguard warrior standing behind immediately pushed the hilt of his sword hard into his shoulder, forcing him to kneel on the cold stone floor and stay silent. Clara knelt beside her, trembling violently, her hair falling down, her eyes sparkling with utter terror. Evelyn smiled coldly, her laughter rang out clearly, shattering the Elder's false drama. She took a step forward, her sharp voice echoing throughout the hall. "Dear Council, do you think you can easily deflect responsibility by blaming all the blame on these two pawns? Do you think the Lycan King and the Lycan Kingdom are easily deceived by such cheap excuses?" From her pocket, she pulled out a sparkling crimson projection, crystal seized from Clara's secret bedroom at the border ambush camp. "I have ironclad evidence that exposes this entire conspiracy," Evelyn said loudly. She infused her power into the stone to activate the magical seal. Immediately, a beam of light flared up brightly, projecting an extremely clear three-dimensional image in the middle of the large hall. In the image, it is a secret meeting at the High Council's secret room. The Supreme Elder and 3 other elders were sitting and discussing with Nathan and Clara. The Supreme Elder's voice rang out clearly in the quiet space of the Great Hall. "This Hunter's toxin has been specially purified by dark magic. Nathan, you will have the archers of the pack fire this poisoned arrow into Valerius's squad in the Dark Valley. When he is poisoned and the madness of the blood curse breaks out, our High Council will immediately intervene to strip him of his royal power because he is insane. Clara will offer the antidote to force him to cede the rights to the Obsidian Kingdom's Black Mine territory. This is a battle map with the High Council's red seal as proof." The movie screen turned off, leaving an eerie silence that covered the entire hall. The truth of the large-scale cruel rebellion was exposed so suddenly that it left everyone present dumbfounded. Representatives from other wolf packs began to stir in anger, turning their indignant eyes towards the row of elders. The Supreme Elder's face was drained of blood. His arms and legs were shaking, he stammered, trying to regain the initiative. "This is just a fake image created by dark magic. A wolfless Omega has no right to stand in the middle of this supreme hall and present evidence to condemn the council. Who says she doesn't have qualifications?" A low voice like thunder interrupted him. Valerius stood up from his throne, his red eyes radiating murderous intent. The whole hall immediately shivered as the royal pressure began to weigh heavily. Evelyn did not back down, she looked straight at the Elder. "This is a royal projection magic stone sealed by the moon goddess's magic, which absolutely cannot be altered or counterfeited by any magic. Furthermore, this is a battle diagram with your own unique red seal that we seized directly at the valley scene. All evidence of the Hunter's toxin poison is currently in the hands of the Blackguard team for testing. Crime of treason against the royal family, intentional poisoning and conspiracy. Killing the Lycan King and destroying your werewolf alliance is clear as day." Her harsh statement triggered a wave of fierce indignation from the alphas of the other wolf packs attending the trial. They all stood up, banged on the table and shouted in anger, demanding that the High Council be purged and severely judged for trampling on the pack law for selfish personal gain. The High Council elders at this moment completely changed their faces as gray as ashes, sitting frozen on the judgment chair. They stared at the diagram and the magic stone with utter despair, completely helpless to make any more excuses in the face of the extremely strict and strong evidence system, prepared single-handedly by Evelyn. The sparkling crimson vision stone, activated by Evelyn herself, exposed the entire High Council's treasonous secret meeting to the entire Herd Alliance. The bare truth made the Supreme Elder's face as gray as ashes, stuttering, unable to offer any more excuses before her extremely strict evidence system. Chapter 9. The Wolf King's Judgment. The atmosphere in the Supreme Hall of the Werewolf Alliance was now oppressive to the extreme. The shouts and indignation from the pack, Alpha, simultaneously rang out like thunder against the corrupt High Council. The Supreme Elder and his accomplices trembled and cowered on the highest row of stone benches, their faces drained of blood. Down in the hall, Nathan and Clara knelt on the ground, the iron chains on their limbs rattling with each tremble of fear. Lycan King Valerius stepped straight from his high throne. The murderous intent exploded like a storm sweeping across the vast dome room. He strode with heavy steps covered in black metal armor down to the judgment platform, his red eyes glowing like two ghostly flames glowing in the dark night. The sound of his majestic armored footsteps rang out dryly, tapping directly into the beating heart of his enemy. As soon as he stopped in the judgment seat next to Evelyn, Valerius unleashed the ultimate alpha pressure at its maximum level. The terrifying pressure was so heavy that the Supreme Elder of the High Council, Nathan, and Clara were immediately forced to lie down on the stone floor, suffocating, black veins bulging all over their necks and pale faces, clenching their teeth to endure an intense pain under the enormous weight. The treasonous act of murdering the royal family and the attempted poisoning of the Alliance are unforgivable crimes under the pack law. Valerius spoke, his voice deep and resounding with absolute authority. I, the Supreme Lycan King, officially pronounced the sentence. He looked down at Nathan, who was kneeling on the ground. Nathan, you are completely stripped of your status as Alpha of the Silver Fang Pack immediately. All family assets are confiscated, and you will be permanently exiled to the wild lands of the Wild Wolves, Rogue Lands. If you dare step foot back into the Pack Alliance territory, any warrior has the right to take your head. Hearing his cruel sentence, Nathan looked up at Evelyn in despair. His dull amber eyes were now filled with extreme remorse. He remembered their childhood years, when little Evelyn smiled innocently and picked up each leaf of the fragrant jasmine herb and offered it to him. He was blinded by Clara's greed for power and sweet inducements. He tried to drag his trembling legs closer to her, pleading pitifully, Evelyn, please save me. Remember our childhood years, when we grew up together under your father's herb garden. I was wrong, I was instigated by Clara and blinded by greed. Please ask the Lycan King to forgive me just once. Evelyn crossed her arms and stood looking at him, her face cold as ice on the border. Her emerald green eyes held no wavering or pity. His belated tears of regret today are actually just the cowardice of a man who has lost all position and power, not true repentance. Nathan, Evelyn said, her voice calm but cold to the bone. You begged me to remember my childhood years? But did you ever remember those things when you publicly humiliated and rejected me at the mating ceremony in your previous life? Did you remember the love when you ordered me to be imprisoned in a dark, damp dungeon, watching Clara use Hunter's toxin to poison me to death in pain? Your fate today is yours to choose. Your crimes have no tolerance. Evelyn's words seemed to pierce Nathan's heart, causing him to completely collapse, dropping his head to the stone floor and crying in despair. He realized he had forever lost the girl with priceless ancient blood and buried his future. Valerius continued to pronounce the verdict. Clara, for the crime of directly poisoning the prince and princess and attempting to murder Lady Evelyn, she is sentenced to be imprisoned for life in the deepest dungeon of Obsidian Fortress, subjected to the torture of blizzards and eternal silver chains. Hearing the verdict, Clara immediately screamed frantically, trying to claw at the blackguard warrior holding her. But the armored warriors held her tightly, the iron chains tightened, causing her to suffocate, black veins bulging painfully. He turned to look at the Supreme Elder and his accomplices. The High Council elders who participated in the treason plot will immediately be stripped of power and detained until the next trial. The Royal Black Guard will temporarily manage all combat documents of the Supreme Council. The Black Guard warriors immediately rushed to capture the Supreme Elder, and the rebellious elders dragged them away with their screams and desperate screams. Nathan and Clara were also dragged out into the hall like two piles of trash. The Alliance's Supreme Hall was completely silent at this time. Valerius turned to take Evelyn's small hand and held it high in front of all representatives of the wolf packs. In the presence of the Alliance and the Moon Goddess, I declare, Evelyn is the only Supreme Luna of the Lycan Kingdom. Loud cheers and congratulations echoed throughout the large hall from the herd alphas. Evelyn held her head high, accepting the public recognition and absolute respect of the entire werewolf world. In this life, she truly stood at the pinnacle of power, successfully took revenge, and controlled her fate. Nathan dragged his trembling legs closer to Evelyn, crying and pleading pitifully, trying to recall their childhood years in the herb garden. But Evelyn stood with her arms crossed, looking at him with cold, distant eyes, refusing all the cowardly pleas of the traitor who had single-handedly buried his own royal future. Chapter 10. The Sunwolf rise under the dawn. After the great victory at the herd's supreme trial, peace and new order were truly restored in the Lycan Kingdom. The evil remnants and plots of the rebellious High Council elders have been completely wiped out. The threat from the Silver Fang pack also ended when the new interim alpha of the pack sent a letter of submission to the royal family. The Lycan Kingdom now enters a promising new chapter of prosperity and freedom. Tonight the sky above Obsidian Fortress is vast without a single gray cloud. But this was not an ordinary blood moon evening like other swarms. This is a rare, once-in-a-thousand-years moment. The solar eclipse phenomenon converges with an ancient ritual, when the sun and moon intersect on top of an extinct volcano. At the royal altar located on the highest peak of the Black Magic Stone Fortress, herbal torches emitted the sweet-smelling smoke of snow moonflower and mugwort. The night wind blew strongly through the stone corridors, carrying with it the pure, gentle scent of thousands of snow, jasmine flowers blooming throughout the black rock crevices. Evelyn stood in the center of the royal altar, in a pure white silk wedding dress embroidered with snow moonflowers, with silver threads sparkling in the moonlight. She looks gorgeous and elegant right now, like a Luna coming out of an ancient legend. Her emerald green eyes sparkled with the pride and confidence of a woman who single-handedly changed the fate of her previous life, single-handedly destroyed enemies, and stood at the pinnacle of glory. Valerius walked up to her, took off his iron armor covered in battlefield dust, wearing only a black velvet cloak embroidered with royal noble gold trim. His amber eyes looked at her filled with deep love and utmost respect for her intelligence and courage. Evelyn, Valerius spoke, his voice deep and trembling with emotion. You are no longer a lowly banished wolfless Omega. You have saved my warrior's life, redeemed my soul from the madness of the blood curse, and single-handedly brought justice before the entire Alliance. You are the one and only Luna and the one who holds my heart. Tonight, under the witness of the Moon Goddess, will you accept me as your mate to rule the Lycan Kingdom with me? Evelyn looked deeply into the amber eyes containing the absolute sincerity of the Supreme Wolf King. Through all the storms that have passed, she knows that he is the perfect destiny for her, the one who respects and loves her with everything she has. I agree, Valerius, Evelyn replied softly, flashing a bright smile that overshadowed the night sky. Valerius pulled her closer to his warm chest. He lowered his head to the crook of her neck, fragrant with the scent of snow moon flowers, his sharp fangs slightly exposed. He gently but firmly took a claiming bite into her collarbone, where the snow moon birthmark was. A stream of warm energy exploded at the bite wound, passing straight into Evelyn's heart. Mate bond is officially completed forever, and a miracle unprecedented in history happened. When the connection was complete, her seer blood reacted strongly with Valerius's Lycan King blood. The ancient seal that was locked tightly in the previous life suddenly shattered completely. But instead of awakening into a silver wolf under the blood moon like other common scenarios, Evelyn's body suddenly exploded with an unprecedentedly brilliant golden solar light column. The solar eclipse phenomenon in the sky suddenly reversed. The sun emerged, releasing brilliant golden rays of light shining straight down on the royal altar. Evelyn felt a proud, majestic howl ringing from deep within her soul. Her body was covered by the warm golden fire of the sun, and she began to shifted form, for the first time in her life. When the golden aura subsided, appearing in the middle of the altar was not an ordinary silver-haired wolf, but a huge, majestic, and beautiful golden solar wolf. Her golden fur sparkled like starlight, woven from the brilliant morning sunlight. Her emerald green eyes glowed with pride and supreme authority. This is the ancient sunwolf blood that represents purification and new beginnings, which has disappeared from legend for tens of thousands of years. Evelyn in her golden sunwolf form raised her head high into the sky, letting out a long, resounding howl that shook the entire Black Rock Valley. The howl brought a wave of brilliant solar aura that swept across the kingdom. A great miracle happened. Wherever the golden fire of the sun spread from the howl, all the cold wolfsbane poisonous mist along the border was immediately burned and completely evaporated. Lush green grass and thousands of golden snow jasmine flowers immediately sprouted and bloomed on the black volcanic rock, covering the kingdom with lush green and warm life. The crazy curse that had ravaged Valerius's veins for so long was completely purified and permanently resolved by the sun's fire. He felt that his veins had never been so cool and peaceful. Long live the Supreme Luna. Long live the Lycan King. Thousands of Blackguard warriors and people simultaneously knelt at the foot of the royal altar, their chants resounding throughout the mountain valleys, expressing their utmost devotion to the new Supreme Luna of the kingdom. Months later, life at Obsidian Fortress is filled with laughter and fullness of life. The large herbal garden behind the castle is lush green under the care of Evelyn. Evelyn, in the form of a pristine golden sun wolf, was playing with the young warriors and royal cubs, while Valerius stood with his back against the stone pillar, a satisfied, happy smile on his lips. The curse of madness has completely disappeared. His mind is more alert and peaceful than ever under the purification of love. He walked down to the garden, hugged her, and gently kissed her forehead. The once dark and cold black magic stone fortress has now truly become a happy family home, filled with the light of love, flowers, and laughter, under the peaceful protective sun of the moon goddess. Under their wise and compassionate rule, the Shadow Pack and the Lycan Kingdom entered an unprecedented golden age. The laughter of children echoed throughout the corners of the fortress, which had been cold and lonely for so long. Valerius's battle scars had been completely healed, and he no longer had to endure the torment of the cursed fire every full moon. Evelyn smiled and leaned her head on his chest, feeling the warmth and boundless love he had for her. The shimmering mate bond rope shines under the golden moonlight of the sun, symbolizing an eternal love that overcomes all the storms of life. Together they wrote a new page of history, a legendary story passed down through generations of the wolf world. The brilliant solar golden flame from the giant solar golden wolf's body spread throughout the northern kingdom, completely purifying the wolfsbane poisonous mist along the northernmost border, and permanently dispelling the ancient blood curse of the Lycan royal family. The Obsidian Kingdom from now on enters a golden age of peace and prosperity that lasts forever under a wise and compassionate ruler.